Is a new trade target emerging for the Philadelphia 76ers and some other contending teams across the NBA. See, Haywood Highsmith recently traded from the Miami Heat to the Brooklyn Nets. So, could a team like Philadelphia look to trade for him closer to this season's NBA trade deadline? Before we get into these specifics here with Haywood Highsmith, today's poll question, get down in the comment section and answer it for me. Do you think the Sixers need to make a trade? Or are you content with the way the roster is currently constructed? If you think they do need to make a move, give me a yes down in the comments. If you're fine with the way the roster is currently set up, the guys I have under roster, assuming Quentin Grimes will be on the team, give me a no. And of course, feel free to explain why down below. So, as I mentioned, Haywood Highsmith, in a little bit of a surprising move, traded from Miami to Brooklyn in a move where Miami basically gave up a second round pick and Haywood Highsmith to get a second round pick back in what was essentially a cost cutting move for the Miami Heat. Again, a player in Haywood Highsmith who I think is a pretty solid player and can be a rotation piece in the playoffs for a contending team. Why are they just dumping him off for nothing? So as I talk about Haywood Highsmith, a lot of your first reaction is probably, well, Chip, if the Miami Heat didn't want him, the Miami Heat usually a pretty smart front office, usually a contending team, at least contending for the playoffs, a good eye for talent over there in Miami. If they don't want Haywood Highsmith and they're just kind of giving him up for nothing, why should we? And why should the Philadelphia Sixers want Haywood Highsmith? Well, let me explain a little bit why this move actually happened, why I think it was a bad decision by Miami, and why I think Philly would be smart to look into a potential trade here down the line this season for Highsmith. Now, we talk about this trade. Highsmith did recently undergo surgery on his meniscus, I believe it was, in his knee beginning of August. So does have some injury concerns. He's expected to miss about 8 to 10 weeks from now. Probably going to miss some time as we head into the regular season. So, you look at a team like the Miami Heat, they factor that in as they're going to be starting their season. He wouldn't really be around there. But, for a team like the Nets, who, of course, they are rebuilding, they're tanking, they don't really need guys that can help them win games right now. They can hold on to him for a little bit. And then as the season goes, he can get back on the floor, build up his value a little bit more. Also, and where I think this move really was made for Miami is the money side of things. And Pat Riley and the folks over there in the Miami Heat front office, by making this trade, of course, I do not get a player back. Miami saved enough money where they actually moved under the luxury tax. So they won't have to pay luxury tax penalties. Now, it's weird because they didn't have to do this now. You don't have to be under the luxury tax until the end of the regular season. So they could have held on to Highsmith until the deadline, then made that move if they wanted to. But they felt like they needed to make that move now. And another reason why this move looks like it was made by Miami to save that money, but also to open a roster spot and the money, of course, to bring in another player to kind of replace him in Drew Smith. Because right after this trade happened, it was reported the Heat signed Drew Smith, who was a two-way guy, ran out of two-way eligibility, similar to what happened with Jeff Doughton. He couldn't sign any more two-way deals. Jeff Doughton went overseas, but Drew Smith re-upped here with the Heat on a 3-year, almost $8 million deal. A solid player over there who is younger, running that guard spot, someone that Miami just clearly prioritized a little bit more. That also factors in to why they let Haywood Highsmith go. I think, though, this was a bad decision by Miami. And you don't have to ask me. Our Heat Report host here at Chat Sports, Nick Roloff, diehard Miami Heat fan, agrees that this was not a smart trade by Miami. Not just because they gave up Haywood Highsmith, for a second round pick and save money under the tax, but also because they could have just waited and done this at the trade deadline and possibly gotten a first round pick from a contending team for Haywood Highsmith, depending on what his value was. There was really no reason to rush this and do this now unless they really, really wanted Drew Smith on this roster. So I know Miami, they're usually pretty good. They have a good eye for talent. We think of them as a well run organization in front office. I think this was a bad move by the Heat. And as a result, I think he's a player the Sixers should look to go after. And a little bit of a reunion. Haywood Highsmith didn't spend much time here in Philadelphia, but to start his NBA career. He did play a few NBA games for Philly, spent some time in the G League, was on a two-way deal. Really wasn't here for very long. Was actually out of the NBA for a couple of years after he was with Philly before he landed back with Miami. But it'd be a fun little reunion to see him back in town. And look, he's carved out himself a pretty good career in his time in Miami. We know like some of these role players, they get to Miami and over the course of time, they build themselves up and build themselves up and into that heat culture, as they say. And look, the counting stats aren't great, but you can see every year playing more and more games, scoring more and more points. That 3-point shot the past couple of years, he's been a near 40% 3-point shooter, and he's a good defender as well. And look, another plus side of this from a couple different aspects is he's also on the final year of his contract on a pretty cheap deal, making $5.6 million. So his trade value won't be quite as high, and he'll be an expiring deal. So not like you need to keep him around for all that long. If you trade for him and he's not as good as you thought, you can just let him walk in free agency. And again, he's not going to cost all that much either. We'll get into that here shortly. So I think a move you could make without giving up a whole bunch of assets that could actually pay some pretty good dividends, especially come playoff time. What say you? Should the Sixers trade for Haywood Highsmith at the deadline? We're talking about a move that could come a little bit farther down the line. Give me a T for trade or a P for pass. Now, my answer coming up just around the corner. But first, these hoodies, man, I keep telling you guys about the deal on this Sixers pullover hoodie, and we have sold a lot of these. Talking to my guy, Jack Lauderay, our ad ops guy, he said, man, these hoodies are selling, and they're selling fast because it's such a great deal. These hoodies were $75 down to just 35. Quick math, that seems like that's 50% off. And look, as we get closer to the season, you're going to, weather it's going to start getting colder. You're going to want something like this, but they're not going to be on sale as we get closer to the season. So that's why you got to take advantage of this deal right now at chatsports.com/76pullover. It's chatsports.com/76pullover. I'll put that link in the comments and description of today's show. Take advantage of that deal before it's too late. Again, 50% off. For me, this is an easy yes to trade for Haywood Highsmith at the trade deadline for some of the reasons I briefly mentioned, and I'll expand upon here. Number one, I think Haywood Highsmith is a perfect fit for what this Sixers team needs and the assets they actually have to realistically make a trade and make some kind of upgrade. Haywood Highsmith, 6'7", 3-and-D forward. He's a good point of attack defender, and he can defend multiple positions. At that size, at that forward spot, we know the Sixers really need someone who can step in at that power forward position and be that kind of glue guy that they lost in Gershon Yabusele. And he's a good spot-up shooter as well. We looked at those numbers earlier, near 40% from three. Not going to offer a whole lot offensively outside of that, but a play hard, he's tough, a good defender who can fill that hole for you at the four. Because right now, the Sixers have a lot of unproven options. Now, sure, the starting lineup will probably be some combination of Paul George or Kelly Oubre running the four. Obviously, neither of those two guys really fit the kind of format I'd like to have next to Joel Embiid, assuming Embiid's out there. I think you need someone who can rebound the basketball at a high level next to Joel Embiid, because Embiid is just, at this stage in his career, not a great rebounder, not spending a whole lot of effort rebounding the basketball because of those knees. They're kind of cooked. He can't really jump. So I want someone who is a better defender than Kelly Oubre, because Kelly Oubre, he's good, but not great. A better shooter than Kelly Oubre. Haywood Highsmith definitely is. And then your other options here, Trent Watford, Jabari Walker, Dominic Barlow. I love Philly taking this shot, right? And bringing in these three guys, Walker and Barlow on two ways, Watford on the active roster. I love taking a shot on these guys, these young players, but they're all unproven. We don't really know if they'll 100% be able to step in and make an impact. As a veteran, Haywood Highsmith can do that for you. And as I mentioned, I don't think it costs all that much. If we get to the deadline and Philadelphia is a contending team, or at least fighting for a playoff spot and looking to make at least a minor upgrade, I think something like this would make a lot of sense. And again, Haywood Highsmith only making about $5 million. That's what Andre Drummond is making. I don't think you need Andre Drummond on this team, right? You got Adam Bona. You drafted Janai Broom. I don't need Andre Drummond on this roster. Both guys are expirings. You throw the Nets a second-round pick, maybe even 2 seconds if Highsmith's having a pretty good season. And Brooklyn will be pretty content with that. They get off a player who's on an expiring deal that can help a contending team. They get a couple future draft picks, and of course, the Sixers get Haywood Highsmith for really a player that I don't think they care about all that much, and just some second round picks, which they won't care about that much either. So, what do you make this deal? This isn't easy except for me, but you let me know. Give me an A for accept or a D for decline down in the comment section. So, kind of to wrap everything up and put a bow on this, if Haywood Highsmith is available at the NBA trade deadline, I think the Sixers should absolutely make a play to try to trade for the former Miami Heat forward. He's a player who would fit this Sixers organization perfectly in terms of what they need at the 4 spot. Someone who can be a really good defender, point of attack defender, can guard multiple positions. At 6'7", has the size, is a pretty decent rebounder, plays hard, and he can hit the 3 ball as well. We know the Sixers are still looking for someone to take that starting 4 role and be in that position. They have some guys that are somewhat unproven, other guys that I don't think perfectly fit the role there, but I think Haywood Highsmith would fit that role perfectly. So if he's available at the deadline, I know the Miami Heat gave him up, but I think it was a bad move by Miami to trade him to Brooklyn. I would love to see the Sixers go after Haywood Highsmith in the trade market. All right, so that'll do it for today's show. Just a quick one here, talking about a player that, look, not a huge name, but someone that I think can make an impact for this Sixers team. They're going to have to make those kind of moves this season because they don't have a whole lot of major trade assets unless you're trading some of the young guys to make true upgrades. So this is the kind of move on the margins that I think could help you, especially come playoff time when you're looking for that final playoff rotation. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We are keeping it pushing here as the NBA season gets closer and closer. So lock us in, hit that sub button, turn on notifications, and as always, let's go Sixers.